podcast, which is securing cyberspace. The cyber realm has been quite active during the COVID-19 crisis, with work-from-home culture being adopted by many businesses and individuals in India and across the world. But as reliance increases on online mediums, the threat of cyber hacks too looms large. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has drawn attention to what he calls sophisticated state-based cyber hacks that are targeting all levels of government, essential services and businesses. He declined to identify a specific state actor, but confirmed it was a state hack owing to the scale and nature of the targeting and the tradecraft used. This was not the first time Australia's cyberspace was breached. It was breached in 2015, 2017, twice in 2019 and 2022. It's not just Australia. India too is at the receiving end. India is among the top 10 countries facing cyber attacks, and these attacks on India's critical information infrastructure tripled during the lockdown period. Today we will analyze the continuing danger posed to countries like India by state-sponsored or non-state-sponsored cyber hackers and interventions needed to defend our cyberspace and strategic systems. I'm Manu Bhattacharya, and let's take a look at what CERT-In, which is India's national cybersecurity nodal agency, says on what we in India need to be prepared for. Well, CERT-In has said that there is a need to beware of large-scale cyber attack on India. There's an advisory that CERT-In has issued stating that. Having said that, CERT-In also says that India's national nodal agency for responding to cybersecurity incidents, this is what CERT-In is for your understanding, and there are a number of advisories that CERT-In has issued. CERT-In has advised that cyber attack could target individuals and businesses. So this is a warning bell that CERT-In has rung. What else does CERT-In says? Let's take a look at that as well. In the other advisory, it says that attackers may use COVID-19 as bait to steal personal and financial information. So this should also ring a bell. Potential phishing attackers could impersonate government agencies overseeing aid disbursement. So they may come to you through email saying that you give your personal and financial information, we'll be providing you aid, but you need to beware of that. Attackers are likely to send malicious emails under the pretext of dispensing COVID-19 linked aid. But one needs to beware that this could well be a phishing attack. Emails will be designed to drive recipients towards fake websites. So the email will be sent to you, designed to take you to fake websites, and emails would be designed to deceive recipients into downloading malicious files. So if you get such suspect emails, do not download the files that accompany it. It is going to be a bit to make recipients enter personal and financial information. So personal and financial information is what these hackers will be looking for. CERT-In advises users to not open attachments and unsolicited emails. So this is an advisory that is attached with this communication that CERT-In has come out with. CERT-In also advises users to encrypt and protect their sensitive documents to avoid leakage. Ensure your documents are well protected and encrypted. CERT-In urges people to use antivirus tools, firewalls and filtering services so that your information and your sensitive documents are protected and encrypted. CERT-In advises users to report unusual activity or attack immediately to it. Go to CERT-In website and see where you can inform it about such malicious agenda. CERT-In says malicious attackers claiming to have 2 million individual or citizen email IDs. So CERT-In is saying that these are malicious actors. They claim to have 20 lakh malicious with malicious intent email IDs. CERT-In says malicious actors are planning to send emails on free COVID-19 testing. So you'll be getting an email saying that we want to test you for free for COVID-19, but there's more to it than meets the eye. Malicious actors planning to send email on free COVID-19 testing. So this is an advisory that CERT-In has issued. This has come into the national dailies, and CERT-In has said that we need to beware of such malicious agenda of cyber hackers. CERT-In says emails to be sent to residents of Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Chennai and Ahmedabad. So these 5 cities residents will be on target. CERT-In says that email to be aimed at coaxing users to disclose personal information. So the idea behind this entire exercise would be to coax you to come out with your personal and financial information, which you shouldn't. So this is about the CERT-In advisory. Let's take a look at the report that has been published of the US-based cybersecurity firm FireEye, and the findings of the report are now coming up next. And they are extremely relevant in the present circumstances because the report says that India is the 6th most targeted country by China-based hackers since 2016. There are other countries being targeted as well. India is at number 6. Top 5 countries targeted are US, South Korea, Hong Kong, Germany and Japan. So besides these 5 countries, India is the 6th country being targeted. Indian government sites came under attack most frequently. So this is what the report says, that the Indian government sites have been most targeted. Telecom, media, high-tech and transportation websites have also come under attack. So these are the websites that are being targeted. In 2013, FireEye established presence of China's PLA Unit 61398, which is aimed at espionage. China's PLA Unit 61398 is a cyber espionage unit of the Chinese military. Since then, its contours have changed. We'll tell you how. Strategic Support Force was set up in 2015 to bring about that change, and Unit 61398, other technology and space units were all subsumed under the Chinese Military Commission. So now the Chinese Military Commission is doing that espionage. Focus of espionage shifted to media sites to influence public opinion. This is not what we are saying. This is what the US-based cybersecurity firm is telling the whole world. Cyber espionage network of underground hacking community present in China. So this is some extremely important information that has been put out by the firm. In 2010, it says Citizen Lab reported cyber espionage network targeted government systems in India. So that's the kind of threat perception that India is living with, and the realities have changed a whole lot in the past few decades. Here's what the Australian Prime Minister said. Well, he said that the government and institutions have been targeted by sophisticated state-based cyber hacks. So Australia has been targeted by cyber hacks. He's also said that widespread cyber hacks are on as far as all levels of government, essential services and businesses are concerned. So these are stunning revelations that were made by Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison recently. He said that government, industry, political organizations, education, health and operators of critical infrastructure have all been targeted in these cyber hacks. Having said that, he also said that it is a state hack because of scale and nature of targeting and trade craft used. So that's what the Australian Prime Minister is saying is the reason why Australia is seeing it as a state hack, and not a large number of state-based actors can engage in such activities. So that's the reasoning being put out by the Australian Prime Minister. Attacks happened over many months and are only increasing with time. That's what the Australian Prime Minister says. In fact, there are past instances also of such attacks that have targeted various institutions in Australia. We'll tell you about that as well. So these are some revelations that Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison made recently. We'll take a break at this point in time. After the break, we'll analyze what is really required in order to ensure that India has a secure cyberspace. We'll be back in a bit.
You know it's only a drill, and yet you train like it is the real thing. Because one day, at a second's notice, it will be. One day, you'll come together as an invincible team, and every second you save will be a life saved. The Indian Air Force is looking for an exceptional team, a team that is truly a cut above.
Join the Indian Air Force to be a cut above.
पक्की होगी बुनियादें तो हंसे हिंदुस्तान होगा। पहले करो शुरुआत करो, करो तो पक्की बात करो। पहले करो शुरुआत करो, करो तो पक्की।
वंडर सीमेंट, एक परफेक्ट शुरुआत।
हमारा डेजर्ट आ गया पर हमारी चैंपियन नहीं आई अब तक।
बिल भरने के पहले तो आएगी ना।
सो गर्ल्स, क्या हो रहा है? बिल हो रहा है। चल अपना कार्ड दे। पिन दे।
RBI कहता है अपना पिन, OTP, CVV या इंटरनेट बैंकिंग पासवर्ड किसी को ना दे। ऑनलाइन बैंकिंग सिर्फ अपने ही कंप्यूटर, मोबाइल और सिक्योर नेटवर्क से करें। हाँ, ये खाने की चैंपियनशिप थी क्या? RBI कहता है जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
Welcome back. You're watching a special broadcast, Securing Cyberspace, and joining us on the show is an esteemed panel of guests. I'm pleased to introduce Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, former Indian envoy to Canada and South Korea, and Dr. Pavan Duggal. He's a cyber law expert. I welcome you both to this special broadcast. I'll come to you, Dr. Duggal, first. There has been a threefold increase on cyber attacks in India during the lockdown period particularly, and we are aware that India is among the top 10 countries which are at the receiving end of such cyber attacks. There is a 56% rise in malicious traffic on internet in India during the lockdown period. If you are with us, Dr. Duggal, what do you make of this trend?
We are increasingly going to see far more cybersecurity breaches. Cyber crimes have massively increased during the COVID-19 times, and I believe that India as a nation needs to be fully prepared for these kinds of cyber attacks. These skirmishes with China on the border has only acted as a catalyst for the culmination of these kinds of potential attacks. And I believe the attacks will no longer just be focused on the surface in terms of targeting through phishing. They'll increasingly start targeting Indian critical information infrastructure so that the essential services could potentially be disrupted. So as a nation, I believe India has a lot of work to do in terms of protecting itself on cybersecurity, given the fact that India does not have a dedicated cybersecurity law, given the fact that the national cybersecurity policy of 2013 has only remained a paper tiger and we have not been able to implement the fact, and given the fact that countries like China are miles ahead in terms of having dedicated 3 distinct legislations on cybersecurity and a detailed strategy, and also given the fact that while China has a dedicated cyber army, India on paper does not appear to have a dedicated cyber army. Hence, appropriate steps need to be taken in terms of having in place adequate standard operating procedures and protocols for all stakeholders, both governmental as also private, so as to protect the critical information infrastructure. These protocols must tell all stakeholders what is expected to be done by them once such an attack takes place, and ultimately creating more awareness about cybersecurity amongst the general population and encouraging them to adopt cybersecurity as a way of life has to be the way going forward for the Indian nation.
Fair enough. So you are essentially saying that it is important to create awareness. You're also saying that it is important to implement a policy which you say has been a paper tiger so far. Well, Vishnu Prakash, Australia has said that its systems which are at all levels of the government, its businesses, essential services have all been subject to hacks by a state actor. And Australia, we are aware, is not facing this for the first time. It has faced this in the past as well. Has cyber warfare become a new norm, so to say, in recent decades?
Absolutely, categorically, yes. Democratic countries like Australia, USA, India, that you have already mentioned, Singapore, Germany, Japan, have been the targets of cyber attacks. And it is very clear where the attacks are coming from. It is by now quite well known that countries like China, North Korea, Pakistan, and a couple of other countries are leading the pack when it comes to waging cyber attacks. Now, as far as China is concerned, they have almost a standing cyber army which runs into hundreds of thousands. And these cyber warriors run a surveillance state in China. They carry out systematic attacks because PLA, the People's Liberation Army's core strength is information warfare. And they believe in information dominance. They believe that once you dominate information, it helps in achieving dominance in other domains. So they have been going about it systematically. And now, also I would completely agree with what you mentioned. The phishing attacks have been stepped up. They are using the concerns, the fears, the vulnerabilities because of the COVID crisis to further or deepen the problems, try to snatch, try to get vital information. Also, I must remark here that we have a difficulty in that 80% of our mobile phones, or especially smartphones, are of Chinese origin, and we all know what it means. So there is a vulnerability, and China has been going about it systematically. It is about time that we work, we do what we can do. We are doing it. We are pretty good at fending off cyber attacks, but we need to do more. And Prime Minister's call to the nation to use rely on Indian products. And now that we have this situation, we should be very clear that we should boycott Chinese products, because that's the only way forward, or one way forward.
Dr. Dugdagal, you spoke about various interventions that are needed in order to ensure that we have a secure cyberspace. You also referred to the National Cybersecurity Policy 2013. If you look at some of the action plans that it had put out, they are setting up of a National Cybersecurity Center. Besides that, test infrastructure, malware monitoring and cleaning center, and National Critical Information Infrastructure Center. You also referred to the need to build awareness. If awareness is built on mission mode and if these are implemented, do you think that we have a fair chance of a secure cyberspace?
I think there's no question of looking for a completely secure cyberspace, because a complete secure cyberspace would not exist. However, we have to quickly start understanding that cybersecurity is itself relative. What was cyber secure yesterday is not secure today, and what's cyber secure today will not be secure tomorrow. However, having said that, I still believe that we need to do quite a lot of stuff which we are not doing. For example, look, there are countries like, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's Singapore, China, Thailand, Australia, who've come up with dedicated laws on cybersecurity. Now, cybersecurity is no longer just a lip service project where you can only give lip service. You need to have a full enabling legal framework, which we currently miss in our country like India. If you're expecting the Indian Information Technology Act, being the Indian cyber law, to provide that framework, that unfortunately may not happen, because this legislation is more for promoting electronic format and for promoting e-commerce rather than on cybersecurity. So that's the number one priority. Number two, we understand that getting an immediate law on cybersecurity passed may be a challenge. However, that's not stopping the government from exercising its powers under the Information Technology Act 2000 to come up with rules and regulations as form of secondary legislation, which they can do overnight without going to Parliament. That's the second thing we need to do. Number three, I think in this entire sector, the entire important issue is that the private sector is playing a very important role in terms of ownership of some of India's critical information infrastructure. It's not totally in governmental hand. Hence, the need for taking the private sector on board with the various initiatives of the government becomes a very, very important necessity. Also, I believe that we are already thinking in terms of a national cybersecurity strategy. Right now, we need SOPs. What has each stakeholder to do once this attack takes place? It's not that we should be in a reactive mode, that every time an attack takes place, then we start looking backwards and then trying to plan forwards. That should not be the approach. Let's presume with effect that, look, such cyber attacks will keep on happening. Let's learn from history, from the case of Estonia of 2007 and Ukraine of 2016, that cyber attacks will happen. They will tend to go ahead and paralyze and destabilize your economy, your networks, your grids. And therefore, as a country, you must have a distinctive strategy on cyber resilience. That, unfortunately, is strongly missing in a country like India. For example, I believe that Indian critical information infrastructure is not that much protected as it should have been protected. So a lot of work needs to be done. So the quicker we start looking at that, the better we can start aiming for a better, more secure cyberspace in the coming times.
Fair enough. Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, you referred to one country's use of phishing attacks on other countries. Are certain countries identified more with such attacks than others? And does this entire digital architecture in terms of cybersecurity get more complicated when a responsible country, which may be a member of the United Nations Security Council, not just a member but a permanent member, backs rogue states like Pakistan or North Korea in developing such technology?
Absolutely. It is very well known that China does not play by the rules of the game. And the challenge of digital security, cyber security, will only get enhanced as the world gravitates even more or depends even more on the cyberspace, the digital space. The problem is that these institutions, these organized forces try to mask their footprint, their IP addresses. They make it seem as if the attacks are coming from other countries. And frankly, nothing is off limits, nothing. Whether it's the financial institutions, government websites, energy grids, even hospitals. The other difficulty is that the Chinese components are embedded in practically every electronic device that is bought, even if it is made in, by some other country. And the Trojans which are hidden can be weaponized. So let us appreciate and understand. We know, I mean, I'm not saying that we do not, we have to come to talk openly of this problem. There is absolute need to enhance cooperation, intelligence sharing with the international community, because not just we, but practically every country is getting affected. And the other difficulty is that they ruthlessly underbid, because it's the state involved, PLA is involved. They ruthlessly underbid to get contracts and try to gain that access. So we and the free world has a big difficulty, a big challenge, which has to be addressed. It is time to call a spade, yes, and do everything that is possible. IPU has been trying, ITU, International Telecom Union, has been trying to have greater cooperation in cybersecurity, but there was this concept of MAD, mutual assured destruction, during the Cold War era. And it was very clear that nobody can get an advantage because there will be consequences. I think there has to be a regimen like that, because unless rogue states know that they can also get to taste their own medicine, it will be difficult to rein them in.
Is there also a need for having multilateral arrangements, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, to deal with the issue of cybersecurity? You refer to several other things that can be done, reducing dependence on Chinese imports, on Chinese products, and on intelligence sharing. Is a multilateral arrangement also one of the solutions that various countries can look at? And then how do you solve the problem that comes with deniability? There are countries that engage in such phishing attacks, but when confronted, deny.
That is the whole problem that I am referring to. During the Cold War era, if a nuclear missile was fired, you knew from where it is coming. There was no deniability. The cyber warfare is based on deniability, based on phishing, where you cover your tracks. And let me recall here that ITU had launched in 2007, some 13 years ago, the Global Cyber Security Agenda, which has 5 pillars: legal, technical, organizational, capacity building, and cooperation. But the challenge, frankly speaking, is one. On the one hand, you have the free world, the democratic country, the open societies, and then you have authoritarian states, the states which are expansionist, which lurk in the shadows, and you have a whole state machinery led by the PLA, which is engaging in these, and they have literally hundreds and thousands, if not more, of cyber warriors.
Fair enough.
So there is I'm not saying that the issue cannot be tackled. All I'm saying is that every means available, certainly multilateral cooperation is required. But where is the good faith? When there is a country which can throw away out of the window all agreements. I'm here referring to India. Since 75, we have had peace on our borders. We have had so many CBMs. In one stroke, that is chucked out of the window. How can you have understandings with a country which does not have bona fide intentions? So we have a challenge, but the good thing is that everybody is smelling the coffee.
Yes.
And the first thing is to comprehend the challenge, openly speak of the challenge, and then to address the challenge.
Fair enough. So you're saying smell the coffee acknowledge the challenge and then counter it. That's all the time that we have for this. So Dr. Duggal and Ambassador Prakash, thank you so much for having joined us on this special broadcast. And since we are living in an interconnected world and more activities are said to be carried out on internet and public networks, even in future, technology and data are bound to get more and more geopolitical attention. Thus, the need arises to be prepared to safeguard India's digital systems through the right interventions, which have been pointed out by panelists in a cybersecurity policy, legal framework, monitoring infrastructure and technology and diplomacy as well. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.